How's it going, everybody? It's C-RadTV back here in our video. So, of course, it's time to do another Detroit Lions NFL draft preview. So, the last draft preview we did, we took a look at the top round one wide receiver prospects in the draft. And in this part, we're going to shift now to the defensive side of the ball and look at the top defensive end / defensive tackle prospects, or defensive linemen for better terms. Pretty much the best pass rushers in this draft. See who the Lions should consider at the second overall pick or even the 32nd overall pick. Since there's some pretty good names, and it's looking pretty likely that the Lions are going to be taking an edge rusher at the second overall pick. So we're going to take a look at them and see how they look. So let's get started. So the first player we're going to go over here who has a lot of ties with the second overall pick. We got hailing out of Oregon, standing 6'4", weighing 255 pounds. We got Kayvon Thibodeaux. So for Kayvon, he's your prototype pass rushing defensive end, so he's very good at rushing the passer. In terms of his strengths, he's a once-in-class type athlete, absurdly fast, crisp out of his stance, has a shocking amount of power behind that punch of his. He can uproot tackles, can drive them into the QB's lap with his bull rush. He's athletic enough to drop into coverage, can run with backs, gets his hands up, can disrupt passing lanes. He has elite balance and body control. He creates nightmarish angles for blockers. His top-end play strength, his twitchy hands that will catch opponents off guards. His legs keep churning. He helps him maintain momentum. He takes good angles in pursuit, won't undercut the runner. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a bit narrow for traditional defensive end and may dissolve teams who want him to set the edge, though. He still spills his pass rush print. He learns how to tie his moves together effectively. His lateral agility is adequate, but not impressive, and his ball tracking could still use some work, so still a few rough edges around him for sure. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Chase Young of the Washington Commanders, and we all know the last defensive end or edge rusher to go second overall in the draft, it was Chase Young a couple of years ago to Washington. So yeah, Kayvon definitely has a lot of upside for sure. I mean, between him and the next guy we'll go over, I don't think he really could do any wrong with either of them. And to be honest, I'd be okay with either of them. But yeah, definitely, I would heavily consider Thibodeaux at the second overall pick. So for the next player we're going to go over here, this is the player I want the Lions to take at number 2 overall. We got hailing out of Michigan, and no, this has no bias of me being a Michigan fan in any way whatsoever. But anyway, out of Michigan, standing 6'6", weighing 260 pounds, we got Aidan Hutchinson. So for Aidan, he's your prototype explosion defensive end, so he's very explosive off the snap. In terms of strengths, he's freakishly fast, has a first step that allows him to rocket at right out of his stance. Good athlete, excellent short area quickness and twitch. He's a creative pass rusher, has plenty of tricks in the bag, has upper body power, rare defensive end. Bull rush is violent, overwhelming for tackles. He rips through angles without being knocked off course. He's flexible enough to bend the corner against tackles. He balances in the run game, which is very remarkable. He plays with a quality motor and works the whistle. Has great body control. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he lacks prototypical length for the position. His height makes maintaining leverage naturally harder. He has open field athleticism as average per player used as a stand-up rusher. His transition to playing with his hand in the dirt as a pro, it may take some time, but hey, always room for improvement. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to now retired pass rusher Jared Allen. We don't know, Jared was an absolute beast with the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. But yeah, Aidan Hutchinson has a lot of upside for sure. Hutchinson is the guy I would take at number 2 if Jacksonville goes offensive line. But he could go number 1 to Jacksonville. Jacksonville decides to be jackasses. If he goes number 1, then I would go Thibodeaux number 2 as my plan B. I think it's 50-50 if Hutchinson goes first overall. Either he does or he doesn't. But if Hutchinson is there at number 2, you got to take him for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Georgia, standing 6'5", weighing 280 pounds, we got Trayvon Walker. So for Trayvon, he's your prototype run defensive end, so he's very good against the run. In terms of his strengths, has unbelievable athleticism, allows him to run down plays from across the field. He's built to be more like Hercules, more ripped cousin. His length allows him to control engagement. He plays with good hand quickness, upper body twitch, fires out of his stance with excellent burst, can cover a lot of distance. He's a versatile lineman, can be kicked inside on passing downs. He's physically overwhelmed college opponents. He can play outside linebacker and drop into coverage, so he has a lot of versatility to him. He's excellent setting the rush at the edge and has remarkable balance. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his high cut build, it puts him at natural leverage disadvantage. His lower body flexibility is average. Still developing his craft as a pass rusher. He doesn't always know where to go with his counter moves. He gets most of his success purely with his physical tools at this moment, but his eye discipline and awareness in the run game, it's pretty inconsistent, so he's got to learn to be more consistent with it. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Eric Armstead of the San Francisco 49ers. So, yeah, Trayvon, he wasn't really going that high at first, but there have been a few mocks that have him going to the second overall pick with the Lions. Like, his draft, like, he had a really good combine and pro day. Like, his stock has continued to climb up. And he's going to probably go high. He's probably going to go at least the top 5 pick for sure. But, yeah, maybe if the Lions don't like Hutchinson or Thibodeaux, maybe he's a solid plan C. You know? Definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. All right, next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Texas A&M, standing 6'3", weighing 290 pounds. We got DeMarvin Lee. So for DeMarvin's strengths, his hand quickness is excellent. He's firing aggressive with his upper half while passing downs. His first step quickness allows him to fire through gaps and get reliable penetration. So he's good at penetrating them holes. Positional versatility will make him a major asset for coaches. He's a graceful mover in the open field, freakishly fast and agile for his size. His burst of balance allows him to thread offensive tackles around the arc. Rush packages, nice creativity. He strings his moves together fluently. He's difficult to turn off the angles once he gets them. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he doesn't have ideal bulk for an interior lineman, and he may be a liability inside on early downs. He's more of a brawler than technician with his approach. He's inconsistent when he gets off blocks in the run game, too, so he's got to be more consistent with that. And too often, he's late with reacting, so he's got to be learning to get better at reacting and react quicker. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Cameron Jordan of the New Orleans Saints. So, yeah, definitely has a lot of upside for sure. If the Lions want him, they might have to trade up for him. I don't think he'll be there at 32. But, yeah, maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of USC, standing 6'4", weighing 250 pounds, we got Drake Jackson. So for Drake, his strengths, his toughness and play strict allows him to hold his ground regardless of whether he's playing defensive end or linebacker. He brings some juice when it comes to gain after the QB. His quality first step can let him rocket past slow-footed linemen. He's surprisingly effective bender, can slip under tackles without being derailed. He has creative tempo and timing that will leave opponents guessing. He knows how to use his body control to make wins, and he's capable of dropping into coverage. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his tendency to play too high leaves him exposed at times in the run game, so he needs to learn to play lower. He will need some time to tinker with his technique before he reaches his ceiling, so it may take a couple years before he gets to his max potential. He's not a power rusher. He will need to win by getting around blockers rather than going through them. He gives his backs to blockers and loses his angles too easily as a run defender. He lacks anticipation and instincts at the moment. His game feel is a work in progress, so it may take a couple years. So, definitely very raw. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Julian Okwara of the Detroit Lions. So, Drake has a lot of upside for sure. Maybe someone to keep an eye on if he falls in the draft. Alright, so the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of San Diego State, standing 6'5", weighing 270 pounds, we got Cameron Thomas. So for Cameron, he's your prototype intangibles defensive end. In terms of strengths, he's well built with broad shoulders, long arms, tapered midsection, retained his quickness despite adding roughly around 35 pounds in college. Has good initial quickness to challenge tackles on a speed rush. He combines very good snap anticipation. He corners smoothly for a big man, shows good flexibility through his core to dip and rip around the edge. He's surprisingly agile, shows good lateral quickness and body control to make himself skinny to squeeze through gaps on twists and stunts. He really coordinates his upper and lower body well. Impressive hand usage to slice his way through the hands of the blockers or O-linemen. His strong hand chops with good power includes as a bull rusher. He can walk the blocker deep into the pocket, has the length and strength for the rip down sack. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's feasted against lesser competition, was aided by aggressive play calling with frequent blitzing, twists, and stunts, so he might be more of a system defensive lineman, maybe. His coordinator, though, moved him to find optimal matchups. So he's always always had to be making adjustments to get the best out of him. He's not capable of playing multiple positions in the NFL, so there's a lack of versatility there, too. He's quick off the ball, isn't truly explosive, lacks the booster button to consistently beat pro offensive tackles or just a speed rush. He lacks explosiveness to separate the ball from the ball carrier. Produced only just one forced fumble in 36 games at San Diego State. He's quick and agile in a short area and shows just average speed. He has a tendency to stand up right at the snap and will quickly be pushed aside without better leverage technique. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Sam Hubbard of the Cincinnati Bengals, so has a lot of upside for sure. Definitely a lot of rough edges that got to be smoothed out, but maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure. Alright, and the final defensive end we're going to go over in this video before we move on to defensive tackles. We got hailing out of Florida State, standing 6'5", weighing 255 pounds. We got Jermaine Johnson. So for Jermaine, he's the prototype strength defensive end, so he's very strong. In terms of strengths, strong edge setter with the frame to take on linemen and hold his ground. Solid knee bender, won't play with reckless leverage. He tracks the ball well through traffic, won't get lost in the mix. Crafty pass rusher, changes angles and tempos in confusing, unpredictable ways. He can overwhelm tacklers, who is hard to shake once he gets his hands attached. He's very precise and controlled with his hand usage. His power can be jarring at times, though, and is tenacious with his approach. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his balance lapses can lead to some trips and slips, so gotta learn to stay more balanced. He's not the type to fire out the starting gate to get upfield quickly. He's late to react to the snap at times, so he's got to learn to react to the snap quicker. He's not a lazy pass rusher, but he won't work overtime to get back into play, so he's got to learn to work a little harder and not beat out like that. He may need some more sneaking if he's going to be used dropping into coverage. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to O'Shane Xymes of the New York Giants, so has a lot of upside for sure. Maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure if he falls. So now moving on to the defensive tackles. The first one we're going to go over here, hailing out of Georgia, standing 6'6", weighing 350 pounds. We got Jordan Davis. So for Jordan, he's a prototype run defense defensive tackle, so he's very good at stuff in the run. In terms of strengths, he looks like he arrived at the football field by way of the Twilight Zone. He's a generationally large human. Doesn't carry it poorly. Catches blockers off guard with hand quickness and mobility. His ominous power when his hands and feet get in sync and pass rush. Has good instincts to read and react to the ball carrier. He's surprisingly nimble lateral mover, can cover ground well. Won't move anywhere in the run game, even when he's double-teamed. His runners have no chance when he gets his hands on him. Has powerful hand jar and tosses around blockers. He has technical prowess as a block shedder, which is very impressive. And he's a consistent pocket passer. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his change of direction and leverage are hindered by his size. He's a one-position player that will struggle if he isn't working as a nose tackle. Needs to prove he doesn't need a snap count to keep stamina. His length is average. He's not a game changer when he is hand fighting. And his weight may need to be monitored. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to now retired defensive tackle Paul Salai. So yeah, definitely a lot of upside for sure. A few rough edges to work out, but definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the final defensive tackle, the final defensive lineman, the final player we're going to go over in this video, we got hailing out of Houston, standing 6'6", weighing 278 pounds. We got Logan Hall. So for Logan, he's a prototype pass rushing defensive tackle, so he's very good at rushing the passer. In terms of strength, has a remarkable body type with room to add weight. He punishes blockers for bad balance. He uses his length to uncork power effectively and create an impactful bull rush. He plays more like a 295, 300-pounder than a 280-pounder. His slew move is one of the most polished weapons in the entire defensive line class. He closes the distance, finishes at a consistent rate of pursuit. He's nightmarish to run away from as a QB. His style will allow defenses to move him around the edge and get creative. He could set the edge on rundowns that rush from the inside on passing downs. He's strong enough to meet double teams if he gets his leverage right, and he's always firing hit with his hands, so he's always moving with his hand movement. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a constant leaner, puts himself at risk by bending at the waist, so he's got to learn not to do that. His length is acceptable, but doesn't match the rest of his body. His balance and leverage is going to get tested against NFL competition. He ducks his head too often. He's not particularly flexible in lower half when moving. His value drops significantly when he takes on powerful guards who could take his chest. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Margus Hunt of the Chicago Bears, so has a lot of upside for sure, a few rough edges, but maybe someone to keep an eye on. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up here for this NFL draft preview. So yeah, quite a few interesting draft prospects for sure to keep an eye on, especially the big two in this class being Thibodeaux and Hutchinson, which is who a lot of Lions fans want to see the Lions take at the second overall pick. You know, the smart Lions fans that don't want the Lions to be jackasses and take a QB at number 2. Let me be real. The only reason people want the Lions to take a QB at number 2 is because people like sexy picks, and a defensive lineman is not a sexy pick. But a defensive lineman is an essential pick because the game is won and lost in the fucking trenches, not with a fucking QB. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, definitely a lot of names for sure. And I feel like it's inevitable, especially with Bleacher Report reporting it, that the Lions are more likely going to be taking a pass rusher at number 2 overall. It's just a question of which one. Is it going to be Thibodeaux? Will it be Hutchinson? Will it be someone like Trayvon Walker? To be perfectly honest, though, as much as I want it to be Hutchinson, I feel like it's going to be Thibodeaux, because I think Thibodeaux would be more of a safer pick overall. And if we know the Lions for anything in the draft, usually the Lions always go the safe route. I mean, if the Lions go Thibodeaux over Hutchinson, I won't be too pissed off because I understand why, it would be a safe pick. So yeah, and Thibodeaux would be one of the safest picks in the draft, so I would understand if they go Thibodeaux at number 2. But yeah, anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. But anyway, that'll wrap it up here. Next time, we're going to continue looking at the defense and take a look at some of the linebacker prospects. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here. That's all I got to say, and I'll see you on whatever I make next. Peace.